Welcome all to another exciting episode of the People of Nature podcast. Today, we will be hanging by a cliff during our recording. I'm just kidding. Today, we have with us a young plant ecologist conducting some extraordinary research on cliff dwelling plants. Let's welcome Dr. Smrithy Vijayan to our studio.
Thank you, Pankaj. It's a pleasure to join you on this podcast.
Thanks a lot, Smriti, for joining us today. So, let me introduce you to our audience. Dr. Smrithy Vijayan recently completed her PhD at Agharkar Research Institute, Pune, and was focused on the cliff habitats in the Western Ghats. Her research explores the diversity and unique adaptations of the cliff dwelling plants that aim to highlight the importance of cliff habitat. But beyond cliffs, Smriti has also experienced working in the forests of the northern Western Ghats and other ecologically significant rock outcrops, plateaus, and Inselbergs. She is also part of the international collaboration Inselberg Research Group, which brings together experts and researchers to delve into the complexities of rock outcrops worldwide. Currently, Smriti works as an independent researcher. She is deeply interested in field based plant ecology, biodiversity assessments, and conservation programs, particularly for lesser known ecosystems. So, welcome once again, Smriti, to the People of Nature podcast.
Thank you.
So, Smriti, we'll be asking you a lot of questions in this podcast, and we are very excited because your research is very unique, it's very different. None of our speakers ever talked about such a niche subject. So, I think we are all very excited to have you here, and we'll be asking you a lot of questions. So, let's start. So, my first question to you is, of course, about plants. So you have worked on plants. Your entire research is on plants. So how did you start? What was the point where you thought that you like plants and you want to work on plants? When was this? When did this happen, and how did it happen?
Um, well, I believe that my journey till today, where I have reached, is one of the dreams that I once wished for. So to tell that, I just have to go to my childhood. I
Mhm.
remember I have always been fascinated by like science communicators, like
Mhm.
documentary presenters, biologists, and
Mhm.
explorers from these National Geography, Animal Planet, and Discovery channels.
Right.
And I was very excited to watch those programs. Still, I am, and used to wonder how to choose such a field, how these people are getting into such a position, or like how to get there first. And during that time I also remember that my parents used to take me on vacations more often, means we used to travel a lot. So I always used to carry tools like plucker or forceps and a small carry bag. And I used to collect tiny plants like mosses, lichens, or ferns, or whatever I found interested. And also like I'll narrate to my father what I know about it. Means it can be right or it can be wrong, but he used to nod along with that. And and he also like used to support me with this childish collections. But thing is, I was not knowing what had to be done with the collected specimens. So I just keep it inside my books. It will be pressed or dried nicely. That's it, end of the story. Later, to choose my graduation course, during those times common career paths were like either medical or engineering profession. But I know that I am interested in biology field. But with the peer pressure, I had to like attempt medical entrance exam. But yeah, it was fortunately the results were not that great. So then, I considered pursuing a career in arts because there was no one around me to tell, okay, if you are interested in some science subject, you can pursue wildlife or biodiversity, or there was no one here to know about such, even to like you can do science field as such. So I thought of, okay, I'll go to some arts field which I am much interested in, but that also didn't work out either. So that's when the time I didn't decide. I mean, I didn't ask for anyone, and one of my neighbor who was a professor in botany, he helped me to decide. Okay, if you really want to do, or if your interest is in nature and all, you can pursue botany. So that's how I came to botany. I did my
Mhm.
master's and yeah, even PhD in botany. So
Wow.
yeah,
So your the roots of your interest were in your childhood, right?
exactly. So when I did my PhD, I started rewinding myself, like how
Mhm.
actually I ended up here, because even I
Mhm.
see my photos, most of the
Mhm.
things I used to collect, it's all from rocks.
Oh, I see. So there is a deep
Yeah,
connection over there. Like
yeah.
you
Somehow
perhaps
there,
always knew that you want to do this.
I don't know.
Great. I
Yeah,
mean, that's amazing. I mean, it's such a personal journey, that as a child you are doing something, and eventually when you grow up as an adult and you are doing the same thing, but in a very different manner, you are looking at the ecosystems in a very different perspective,
right,
and you have so much of knowledge then, like working over there.
right, right.
Great. So, my next question, of course, is about your very interesting and very perhaps out of the world sort of work that you have been doing, and which is, of course, this cliff dwelling plants. So,
Hmm.
you have been working in very challenging terrains like the vertical cliffs, right?
Right.
So, of course, the question is about what are the difficulties that you faced and how successful, this work was overall. I mean, looking at the difficulties and the success rate. So,
Yeah. Mm, yeah, so working in a mountain is
mhm,
kind of a difficult thing, but studying a vertical cliffs, it's an
mhm,
entirely new challenge.
right.
So when I chose cliffs as the habitat type for my study, my PhD guide, Dr. Mandar, he asked me several times that if I was sure about this choice. He told me to convince yourself first how difficult it can be and what risks may come. And he also asked me to read research papers on cliff studies and their sampling methods to understand the risks involved in it. So I took time to understand what it is about. After this reading task, I said I was ready for it. Maybe because I like to experience unique things. So that time, even I didn't had a basic idea of how research is, because there was no proper mentoring for me. So I was like all by myself, and I thought, let's do it, and it's unique. So I decided
Great.
to work. Yeah, so I decided to work on the vegetation of cliffs from the northern regions of the Western Ghats.
Mhm,
Then, yeah, so the fact that there were no previous studies or references on cliffs,
mhm,
even from India, to find a
mhm,
proper sampling method. So that was the
right.
first challenge for me after entering into this PhD.
Mhm,
And also we understood that, like, after reading so many papers, most of the studies were using climbing method,
okay.
uh, but we understood that it was not a good option to adopt such a
Mhm,
method from other countries due
okay.
to several reasons. First and
Mhm,
foremost is the climate and rock type.
right.
So, climate is always connected with vegetation.
Mhm,
So, vegetation in other countries like European,
mhm,
US, Australia, the cliff vegetation is completely different from what is here. And the flowering time is also different. And the rock type is also different. Like most of the studies have done in limestone, sandstone, granite, like that. So during dry periods for them, it is easy to do their work. It's easy to sample. But in the case of Western Ghats, or especially in northern side, where the Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, and I mean little part of these states come,
Right.
their monsoon is actually for only lasts for 4 months,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
the vegetation on the cliff also lasts for that much time period, like peak of
Right.
the flowering period.
Right.
And we have the rock type basalt and laterite. And more than laterite, it is basalt. And it's very slippery during monsoon. So it is one reason we thought like, okay, that is not a good option. And even if we are adopting, we need advanced climbing equipments to access this vegetation.
Right. Right.
Another challenge was like we had to know, or like I had to understand how the sampling should be, whether it is like plot study or random analysis, and even if I have to do how much area, whether the cliff is accessible to us, because
Correct.
we
Yeah.
have to stand near the cliff, and
Mm.
cliffs are mostly on the edges
Yeah.
or on the roadsides. So
Mhm.
finding accessible cliff was also a challenge. And
Right.
another thing is like which cliff area has to be studied. So unlike other horizontal ecosystem or habitats, cliff cannot be found, identified from a map.
Yeah.
Right. So
True.
that was also another challenge.
Mm.
Even though we have this Google Earth Pro, we can
Yeah.
see the cliff from different angle, but
Right.
still we don't know whether vegetation is there or not.
Correct.
So we
Yeah.
have to go and see. So either we should know, okay, there are these places we can select. But
Hmm.
again, when you plan a method, you have to be systematic, like how much, what's the criteria you are choosing. So from
Right.
which area, how many, like that. So that
Mhm.
again was giving a difficult time. So actually for um, overcome all these things, I had to dedicate my entire first year to a pilot study with fieldwork and discussions just to find a sampling method. So
Wow.
so yeah, my first year went like that, and the
Mhm.
real challenge actually started after that.
Oh.
So to sample the cliffs on Ghat roads. So you might
Mhm.
have traveled along the Ghat regions in
Yes.
Maharashtra.
Yes. Yes.
It's very narrow. One side is
Yeah.
valley, other side
Correct.
is
Correct.
cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to park our vehicle at one end, and we have to carry
Mhm.
all the equipments, walk along
Right.
the road, and find the suitable location. And
Mhm.
there we have to stand for long hours.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and so and the location will be like we have to decide, okay, which altitude you are doing, which
Mhm.
cliff facing aspect you are selecting, or is it
Mhm.
enough, the area of the cliff is enough for your plot, like
Right.
that. Yeah. So then the weather plays another role. It drastically changes from dense fog to heavy rains and sometimes sunny. So this 4 months in this drastic climate change, it is another difficult
Right.
thing because
Right.
it often reduces the visibility of the vegetation, the
Mhm.
coming vehicle, and even people.
Yeah. Too
So
many things.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, in that case, we were also informed that my guide already informed me that these things will be there, so safety is a
Correct.
priority.
Yes.
So then we had to wear fluorescent jackets and helmets
Right. Right.
and even boots.
Hmm.
So for me, all these were different experience because I am coming from I mean south of the Western Ghats, means I am from
Yeah.
Kerala,
Yes.
and this basalt
Mhm.
cliffs are very different for me, and I
Mhm.
didn't expect it will be this much beautiful also, but scary also.
Right.
Yeah, and
Wow.
so I'm just adding few more
Mhm.
challenges which I
Yeah.
faced.
Yeah. I know there are a lot
Um,
of challenges, and please go on.
so I did my sampling in both Ghat regions and in the fort regions, these
Okay.
historical forts.
Yes. Yes.
So when I worked in these forts, reaching the cliffs involved like long
Mhm.
treks, and the
Mm,
cliffs will be mostly on the edges, so we have to be
yeah.
careful there is enough space to stand. Even if there is
Mm,
space to stand, we cannot move much unless
yes,
we
yes.
finish the plot.
Work. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Mm.
minimum one plot study will take 4 to 6 hours to
Oh
finish.
my God.
So accordingly, we have to
Wow.
find or like plan food and water, or
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, it was very, but it was very nice. Yeah, it was really beautiful and like successful.
Wow, that's definitely a lot of challenges, and I can imagine, working in such a narrow space with so many things happening at the same time, and standing for long hours is really difficult. It's not easy, and you have been doing this for many months in different locations, in different altitudes, different regions. So just amazing work. Great.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
we can definitely see that all this work is getting published. You have published a lot of research, and there are a lot of papers to read on cliff ecology now. But is there anything favorite or any a research that is very close to your heart that you would like to talk about?
Yeah. Um, I would say my first thesis related paper on desiccation tolerant plants was the
Hmm.
major research breakthrough and one of my favorites. Um, so, this topic was actually one of my research objectives, that is to study cliff dwelling desiccation tolerant plants. And this paper actually talks about the plants that can survive extreme dehydration or desiccation, losing its 90% of their water content, and then it revive back once water becomes available.
Wow,
So
amazing.
yeah, it is really so these plants actually is outcrop specific mostly. It's like commonly found on rocks, and also it can be seen on open canopy tree trunks. If I say, if you go to Mahabaleshwar region, the trees on the roadsides, you will see so many ferns on the tree trunks. So most of which are coming in this
Yeah,
category.
correct.
Yeah, so these plants actually, when they undergo dehydration, they curl.
Mhm.
They curl and they fold their leaves to protect from this sun damage or UV rays, and
Okay,
protect. Actually, they protect their photosynthetic apparatus. So they
hmm,
tightly close their leaves. And once
I see.
water is available, they reopen it and unfold
Okay.
or resume their normal function. So,
Wow.
and it's not time taking, it's like with depends on each plant type or each individual. It can be from
Hmm.
like some plants will take 1 hour to rehydrate, some plants like 12 hours, 1 day. So it depends. But so I'll tell you one example you might be heard of, this
Okay.
magical herb called Selaginella, also
Oh,
known as
yes.
Sanjeevani.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very common in our folklores, or like even today in the outskirts, people believe that because it can revive, this also have the power to bring people back to life. It's not that magic, it's just the property that it is showing the desiccation tolerance. So uh,
Oh, I see, I see.
yeah, so because of that, it is also known as resurrection plants.
Amazing, amazing. Great.
Yeah,
So this
and
has been documented in a way.
yes, yes. So actually, our
Wow.
lab began this work after communicating with one eminent researcher, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Gaff. So
Okay.
he actually identified 9 grass species in India that
Mm-hmm.
were known to desiccation tolerant.
Okay.
And he published this paper in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, there was no follow-up studies or no research happened on this particular topic.
Okay.
So it was really great that we could communicate with him, and
Mm-hmm.
he supported us to restart the work.
Right, right.
Uh, so when I started my field work, I found that one of the species he mentioned in his paper, that is Trypogon
Mhm.
species. It's It's a
Okay.
grass which is
Okay.
like a mat forming. So
Mm-hmm.
that also you might have seen on the cliffs. Like
Mm-hmm.
there will be bunch of grasses which is very green during monsoon and
Mm-hmm.
very brownish or kind of dry during other
Right. 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 Yeah.
post monsoon till the summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is most of that is trypagon species.
Okay.
And so with that discovery of Garf's paper, we began collecting such potential species with the field observation, and we took it to lab. So under the lab condition, we conducted two different experiments. One
Okay.
is actually involving the water content test. So we used to test its relative water content in three states, like fresh state, rehydrated, and dehydrated state. Then and there is a threshold limit. If the plant is showing below 13%, it is, yeah, desiccation tolerant plant. Simultaneously, we used to do a time lapse observation of the rehydration and dehydration process, so to
Okay.
we can reconfirm that, yeah, this is really a
Mm-hmm.
resurrection plant.
I
So
see.
with this result, actually, we expanded our discovery from that 9 species to 62 species of resurrection plants
Wow. Amazing.
in India.
Amazing.
Yeah, that is
Amazing.
occurring in India.
Wow.
Um,
That's a big discovery.
yeah, so it's not that this plant was not there; it is there, but it was not identified properly. And all of these plants grow in this beautiful extreme habitats as well. So the interesting thing is, um, so these plants have been studied in other countries like South Africa and Germany, and they are actually studying the mechanism behind this unique ability, or they are finding the genes responsible for this mechanism, and they are aiming to incorporate these genes into crops to help them survive during water
Okay.
scarcity. So
Okay. Okay.
this actually makes our study even more significant.
Mhm. Right.
We have more, our food products are more of cereals or of from
Correct.
grass species. So in long term research, this will be a very
Mhm.
useful study
Yeah.
to find out, like it can be actually benefited for
Yes.
drought resistant species or crops.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually a
Wow.
baseline work.
Great. So many things, huh, along the cliff. So
Yes.
amazing. I mean, but you know what? So cliffs and these mountain sides, these are, as you mentioned, that a lot of people go there for rock climbing, trekking, and tourism. As you mentioned, there are forts, a lot of historical monuments and heritage. So
Hmm.
during your work and your observation in the Western Ghats, so how do you think how these recreational activities are affecting cliffs and their diversity and the ecology of cliffs?
Mm, yes, so even during my field observation, I found like there are many tourism activities in and around this area. And yeah, mountain sites are major spots for trekking and tourism. But there is one more aspect for this cliff, that rock climbing or rappelling. So when I was doing my literature survey, I used to see many papers regarding rock climbing that is actually affecting the cliff habitat. But in in this area or in the Western Ghats, it's not a very popular recreational activity. So and if it's, I'm not saying that it is not there, it's there remotely, but it's not that popular. So right now I am not sure that how much it will be affecting. But yeah, other recreational activities like tourism, it is definitely hampering the vegetation on cliffs. So for example, if I say, most of the tourism happens during this monsoon time. Once the rain starts, people started coming to the cliff area to see, to enjoy the waterfalls, to see the beauty of other valley sides and all.
Right,
So
right.
I have seen tourists often unknowingly plucking the flowers or throw them aside after their entertainment without knowing whether the plant is rare or endemic or its significance to the nature. So, same in the case of plants near waterfalls, so which are at risk from human activities that actually it is actually damaging the delicate vegetation. So,
Correct.
for example, there are insectivorous plants on cliffs
Yes,
like
yes.
Utricularia. So they survive by capturing microorganisms on the cliffs. So
Right.
if they are hampering that, it's not just Utricularia is going; it's other
Mm-hmm.
diversity also hampering along with that. And
Right.
there are also other cliff dwelling reptiles, crabs, and various
Mm-hmm.
pollinators. So it's all connected, right?
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
this yeah, human activity, yeah, in this
Mm-hmm.
accessible areas it's really hampering, but there
Correct.
are no studies as such now, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say there should be in
Yeah,
future.
definitely. I mean, it's very
Yeah.
much needed. But do you think there are any policies in place which specifically talk about cliff and what can be done for cliff conservation or something like that?
At present, no, because
Mhm.
cliff as a habitat, nobody having looked at it. Okay,
Correct. Yeah.
cliffs always is like either it's a barren rock,
Hmm.
unproductive, so it's just a part of rock formation. But people are not considering it as other habitat because it's after my study I realized like how rich the habitat
Hmm.
is with
Right.
different types of adaptations even inside plants.
Hmm.
Okay, so yeah, there are no such network or any organization or activity to conserve cliffs as per now, but
Okay.
it can be done. But for that, first there should be proper research, proper
Hmm.
ecological
Right.
studies conducted to document
Right.
not only the
Right.
plants but other biodiversity on the cliffs,
Correct.
their habitat requirements and the threats what they are facing.
Hmm.
So this what we studied or what the research has been done should be shared among the local community in academics
Hmm.
with
Right.
trekkers and also at the management level.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Yes.
also it can be involved with the forest department or biodiversity department, like site specific within the
Hmm.
protected area of that forest or something like that. But it's
Hmm.
not actually or currently in India.
Hmm.
But I could say that we have a rock outcrop community right now emerging
Yes.
in Maharashtra
Yes.
region, or it's like expanding.
Hmm.
So they also actually can take this
Correct.
further. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there is definitely a need, and people should come together to, look at it and also conserve these clips. So,
Right.
very fantastic way that you looked at plants, and now you have compiled this data and it's now available. So, Smriti, you also has conducted some workshops. I think one of those was with University of Rostock, Germany. So, when
Yeah.
you are discussing about the diversity of rock outcrops, plant strategies in a changing world, that was the title of your workshop that you have mentioned. So, what was the response like, and how people, like global audience, is reacting to this kind of work? What is your experience?
Yeah, that was a really wonderful experience with a global audience.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually a closed group discussion and a conference like program,
Mm-hmm.
and the people who are actually expert or who are associated with rock outcrop research,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Right.
was one of the resource person in that, and
Mm-hmm.
I shared the insights or my work
Mm-hmm.
related to plant functional diversity, which is on the
Mm-hmm.
vertical rock outcrops.
Okay.
So their response was like they also haven't seen such kind of diversity
Right.
uh, in their region because
Mm-hmm.
it's totally different. Even
Mm-hmm.
some family of cliff dwelling plants is not present in India, what is there in other countries.
Okay. Right.
So and and actually it was like a virtual trip for us to the rock
Mm-hmm.
outcrops in other countries. So
Wow.
they were also like amazed, and they
Mm-hmm.
also what I want to say is like it was really nice, and we I could learn so much. And
Mm-hmm.
um, what to say, like they also encourage to tell that like you can collaborate with us.
Right.
Like they also told that okay, you should go this with a conservation aspect, you should explore
Mm-hmm.
more.
Right.
So yeah, it was really wonderful.
Great. So,
So thing is like just
mhm,
with one workshop or one conference,
mhm.
we haven't stopped that. It's
Correct.
one.
Yeah.
It's a step by step
It's
process.
going on. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that was a basic first time conference we did
Wow.
with this outcrop specialist.
Amazing. So I think we need more such, domain specific things to happen so
Yeah.
that we can, talk about it more broadly and also discuss conservation.
Right.
Wow. So, cliffside journey, I'm just loving it. So, my next question to you, Smriti, is do you have any memorable moments of wildlife sightings from your fieldwork in cliffs and mountains? Because these are very unique, very different habitats. So, if anything you want to share about it.
Yeah, definitely. There are many, but
Mhm.
I'll just tell a couple of things here.
Okay.
And actually, this memorable moments completes my fieldwork in the Western Ghats. So
Mhm.
it was not just plants which I was wondering
Mhm.
on these cliffs. We had so many other like fauna on the
Mhm.
cliffs. So not
Right.
only on the cliffs, like during the field work, we had great moments.
Mhm.
So one interesting thing was like while trekking,
Mhm.
I or my team had a encounter with a cobra.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like we had to trek to reach the cliff point where one side will
Mhm.
be valley and other side
Right.
only we have to walk.
Right.
So and it was such a situation that we were not able to move, and which lasted for some 5 to 6 minutes. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was like some scary and unforgettable moment. And another sighting was like we used to do night trails after working hours. Means like
Okay.
if we finish by 5 or 5:30, then around 7 we
Mhm.
start. So someone will
Right.
be there to accompany us.
Correct. Yeah.
And it was one of the field work in the Anmod Ghat, which is coming
Mhm.
near to that Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary in
Okay. In
Goa.
Goa. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could spot a leopard and a
Wow.
tarantula. And
Oh,
that
amazing.
was, yeah, and that was in the exact area where I sampled in the daytime.
Uh-huh. I see.
So yeah, that was
Wow.
also a wonderful moment. And
Nice.
sometimes, yeah, on working on cliff, it's like we set up the quadrat, and there can be like some reptiles, snakes
Yes.
or geckos, millipedes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was wonderful.
Nice. So you're also seeing them in the quadrant.
Yes, yes, yes. I have even pictures of that.
Wow. So
So
amazing.
actually, this also was important for me, not only just seeing and wondering. It was actually part
Mhm.
of the biodiversity of associated
Yeah.
with cliffs.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow. So Smriti, so many things you shared with us. We have come to the end of this podcast, and just a couple of questions remaining.
Yeah.
So, this one question I think we asked to all our speakers is that you are working in very harsh terrain in unexpected, places. As a female ecologist, what are the challenges have you faced in your career? Not just in PhD, but overall in this ecology career.
As a female ecologist, To be frank, in so I came into this ecology research. It's been 7 years, and
Hmm.
in all these 7 years, I actually haven't faced any discrimination by gender.
Okay.
Okay, and for me, it was all positive experiences. I
Hmm.
mean, I was fortunate to have a good lab team and a good guide.
Hmm.
So um, even I even had I came to a doubtful moment that okay, is it because my
Hmm.
gender I am facing something? For example,
Right.
before we step into this sampling method,
Hmm.
I I had a wish that I want to do rock climbing and do the sampling. Okay, but I
Okay.
am not a rock climber or I haven't
Right.
done rock climbing before.
Right.
So when we were discussing about the sampling method, no one was willing to
Hmm.
let me do the climbing part.
Right.
So at first I felt a bit disappointed and wondered like, was
Hmm.
it because I'm a woman or do
Hmm.
they doubt my capability?
Right.
But later the pilot study, I
Hmm.
realized that okay, it's not because of the gender.
Right.
Um, Actually, it's a huge responsibility that
Hmm.
field work is just not like you cannot do it alone. It's a
Yes.
teamwork.
Yes.
So you cannot take others' time for granted by first
Hmm.
learning rock climbing and then do the research. And so
Hmm.
simultaneously, my fellowship also started.
Right.
And even if I hire some experienced rock climber, the safety
Hmm.
would be mine and my guides.
Correct.
So and because the rock climbing is not rock climbing as a sport is very different from the research data
Yes.
collection.
Yes. Yes.
So it needs more careful navigation, prolonged
Yeah.
focus or study observation.
Right.
So then I really understood that okay, it's not this
Hmm.
challenge as a female, but
Yeah.
it's part of your responsibility.
Correct.
So only yeah, I think I can remember only one thing that as a female ecologist, overnight staying during
Hmm.
the field work is actually plays a role there.
Right.
But like I said, I had a good team during
Hmm.
my research, and we
Yeah.
used to find a safe place. Sometimes it
Hmm.
can be far away, like 1 to 2 hours distance from the site, or
Okay.
sometimes if it is on the mountain top or in deep inside where
Hmm.
we cannot trek back or find any
Yes.
hotels, we have to stay
Yes.
in tent. But
Uh-huh.
everywhere people have treated me very nicely and not giving any consideration as a female
Hmm.
because I don't believe in that. For
Right.
male and female, many things are the same, many difficulties,
Hmm.
many challenges are the same. Yeah,
Right.
there are basic facilities which women
Hmm.
needed, which
Yeah.
there are like physically or
Hmm.
mentally it's different, but
Correct.
I don't believe in many other things. So
Right.
everything was a positive experience for me. Even I had an assessment work in Bihar rock outcrops. So
Hmm.
sometimes I had to visit several places with all male team,
Right.
like with expert forest officers or
Hmm.
rangers.
Hmm.
There also I never felt treated differently because of the
Right.
gender. So
That's
from
nice.
my experience, it was overall good.
Great. That's really nice. I mean, you're having a extremely positive, uh, experience of the work that you have been doing and the people that surround you. That's just delightful.
And yeah, and today I think people are very encouraging and supporting
Yeah.
for females coming towards this field.
Correct. Yeah. Great. So, Smriti, coming to the last question, do you have any message that you would like to give to our budding field researchers or someone who want to work on cliffs or plant ecology in general?
Yes, for budding field researchers, I would say um, it's not easy or it's not difficult. It's depends on your mindset. So you have to be prepared both physically and mentally,
Mhm.
uh, because always field work means the condition can be rarely be ideal. uh,
Correct.
but but even there are obstacles, it will teach you something, that what you should do, what you shouldn't do.
Mm,
So first you should know which area you are working on and what are the possibilities, and are you really ready for it? Do you have enough support? Because a female coming for such work, it's little bit hard to accept by other people.
right.
Because why I said that, it's general fact that there is female dominated areas and male dominated areas,
Mm-hmm.
but in my case that was not bothering me. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, everyone in the sense, like whoever is interested in this should really come up and talk about it. Because even I have seen few students after me coming and approaching my guide, but
Mm-hmm.
after seeing clips, no, they are not ready. And
Right.
one more thing I would like to say is field research is interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
even I have seen in some intern students that they are very happy, enthusiast, show their enthusiasm in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Very curious, they'll collect the data and everything. But once coming to lab, they don't want to work with the data.
Right.
So, if you are curious about your work, or even if it is cliff or any other habitat,
Mm-hmm.
you should have the curiosity. You should ask many questions, but you also should answer with the data what you have collected from.
Right. Right.
So it's not just observing. Uh, it's not just like a capturing thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
photographic thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to adapt to many challenges in this field,
Right.
and it's it's like enjoy the journey.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. So enjoy the journey and start from the basics, complete the work, do analysis, and then bring about the new knowledge, new information that everyone would want to see and use it for conservation. So thanks a lot, Smriti. It was wonderful talking to you. We had so many good things, coming out of this podcast, new things, I would say, and I think all our audience would definitely enjoy it. So thanks once again for having, being a part of this podcast and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Pankaj. I'm happy that I gave a gist of my field research, and it will reach to many listeners through this podcast. And I really enjoyed this conversation also. Thank you.